He was a silent witness to the city's arrogance, a stray who had survived by being smarter and faster than the machines that tried to hunt him. He was a king of a kingdom that didn't even know he existed. Despite his solitary life, Midnight wasn't wild. There was an intelligence in his gaze that transcended animal instinct. He watched the humans from the ventilation grills, observing their joys and their sorrows with a detached, feline wisdom. He was a fragment of the natural world trapped in a cage of glass, waiting for a moment when the machines would fail and the shadows would be needed. The only friend. Midnight's cold, mechanical world changed the day he met Leo. Leo was the 7-year-old son of the night security warden, a boy with messy hair and a heart too big for the clinical city. While his father watched the monitors, Leo would wander into the service lobby, a place where the polished marble gave way to functional concrete. It was there, behind a stack of shipping crates, that he first saw the amber eyes watching him from the dark. Most children would have been afraid, but Leo felt a strange kinship with the lonely cat. He began to bring scraps of his dinner, pieces of roast chicken or corners of a ham sandwich, wrapped carefully in a napkin. He would sit on the cold floor and talk to the shadows. He told Midnight about his school, his dreams of seeing the stars without the city's smog, and how he felt like a small gear in a giant, scary machine. Midnight, usually wary of any human touch, found himself drawn to the boy's gentle frequency. He began to emerge from the darkness, first just a nose, then a paw, and finally his full, sleek form. He would weave through Leo's legs, his purr a low, rhythmic thrum that competed with the building's machinery. In that dusty service lobby, a bridge was built between two worlds that the spire tried to keep apart. Leo called him Midnight, a name the cat accepted with a slow blink of his golden eyes. For Leo, the cat was a secret hero, a guardian of the basement who kept the monsters away. For Midnight, the boy was the only source of warmth in a world of cold metal. Their friendship was a quiet rebellion against the city's sterile laws, a reminder that even in a fortress of glass, love could find a way to grow. As the months passed, the bond deepened. Midnight began to wait by the service door at exactly 8 p.m. every night. He would lead Leo through the safe parts of the basement, showing him the glowing blue servers and the hidden pipes. They were a team, the boy who saw the magic in the machine and the cat who was the magic itself. Little did they know that this bond would soon be the only thing standing between life and death, the digital silence. The catastrophe didn't start with a bang, it started with a flicker. At 9:12 p.m., a sophisticated cyber attack tore through the city's power grid like a wildfire. It wasn't just a blackout, it was a total systemic collapse. In the Obsidian Spire, the AI shrieked its final warning before its circuits went dark. The brilliant neon crown of the building extinguished, plunging the skyscraper into a terrifying, absolute blackness. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. The hum of the ventilation died, the electronic locks froze in place, and the elevators, the lifeblood of the spire, stopped instantly. In elevator 42, Leo was alone. He had been riding up to bring his father a late-night snack when the world vanished. He was suspended in a steel box, 1,000 feet above the ground, surrounded by a darkness so thick he couldn't see his own hands. Panic rippled through the building, but without power, the rescue drones sat useless in their charging bays. The emergency stairs were locked by the failed security system, and the high-speed elevators were now vertical traps. Leo's father screamed into a dead radio, his flashlight beam lost in the vastness of the lobby. The perfect building had become a tomb, and the technology that was supposed to protect everyone was now their greatest enemy. Midnight felt the shift instantly. To him, the loss of power wasn't a tragedy, it was a homecoming. The darkness was his element. But as the building settled into its dead state, he felt a sharp, stabbing vibration through his pores. It was the sound of a frayed cable in shaft 4. He knew that scent, that frequency. He knew that Leo was trapped in the box that was now slipping, inch by agonizing inch, toward the abyss. While the humans stood frozen in the lobby, paralyzed by the loss of their digital eyes, Midnight moved. He didn't need a flashlight or a blueprint. He sprinted toward the service hatch of the elevator bank, his muscles coiled like springs. He knew that the backup brakes on elevator 42 were failing. He had 10 minutes before the box became a falling star, and no human could reach the 100th floor in time the descent into the shaft. Midnight leaped into the gaping maw of the elevator shaft. To a human, it was a terrifying drop into nothingness, but to Midnight, it was a landscape of steel ropes and iron beams. He began the impossible ascent, his claws clicking rhythmically against the metal. He leaped from the counterweight rails to the primary cables, his body a blur of black fur against the dark grey machinery. The air in the shaft was cold and smelled of burnt copper and old grease. Every few floors, he had to navigate around the massive pulleys and tensioners that were now locked in frozen poses. His heart hammered against his ribs, a tiny drum of biological defiance against the cold steel around him. He wasn't thinking about the heights or the danger, he was following the faint, terrified heartbeat of the boy he loved. As he reached the 80th floor, the shaft groaned. A support bracket snapped, sending a shower of sparks and metal shards raining down. Midnight flattened himself against a beam, his fur standing on end as the debris whistled past him. The vibration in the cables was getting worse. Elevator 42 was sliding. He redoubled his efforts, his paws raw and bleeding from the jagged edges of the industrial steel. He reached the top of the elevator car at the 101st floor. He could hear Leo inside, a small, fragile voice calling out for his father in the dark. Midnight let out a loud, piercing meow, pressing his face against the emergency hatch. Inside the car, Leo stopped crying. He recognized that sound. "Midnight," he whispered, his voice trembling with hope. "Is that you?" But finding the boy was only half the battle. The elevator was jammed by a secondary security bolt that required a manual release from the external control box, a box located on the wall of the shaft, 5 feet away from the car. Between the car and the box was a gap of 1,000 feet of empty air. Midnight looked down into the darkness, then back at the hatch where Leo was waiting. He didn't hesitate the final connection. The jump was a masterpiece of feline physics. Midnight launched himself from the roof of the car, his body stretching into a thin black line. He caught the edge of the control box with his front claws, the metal groaning under his weight. He hauled himself up onto the small ledge, his eyes fixed on the manual release lever. It was a heavy steel handle, designed for a human hand, and it was protected by a live wire mesh. The cyber attack had left the emergency circuits in a state of chaotic feedback. The mesh was pulsing with blue, erratic electricity. Midnight knew the pain that waited for him, he could smell the ozone. He looked back at the elevator car, which shuddered and dropped another 6 inches. If he didn't pull the lever now, the brakes would fail completely, and Leo would be lost to the darkness. Midnight lunged. He shoved his head and shoulders through the sparking mesh, the electricity arcing through his body. His muscles convulsed, and a high-pitched scream of agony escaped his throat. But he didn't pull back. He bit down on the steel lever, using the weight of his entire body to pull it downward. The sparks flew, singeing his fur and clouding the air with the smell of burnt hair. With a heavy, mechanical clunk, the safety locks engaged. The elevator car stopped its slide, locking firmly into the guide rails. The manual doors groaned and slid open 3 inches, just enough for a child to reach the emergency release. Midnight fell back from the box, his body smoking, his amber eyes dimming as he slumped onto the narrow metal ledge. He had done it. The glitch had saved the system. Leo pried the doors open and scrambled onto the 101st floor landing, just as the building's emergency lights finally flickered to life. The boy looked back into the shaft, his eyes wide with terror and gratitude. He saw the small, still shape of the black cat on the ledge across the gap. "Midnight," he screamed, reaching out his hand. But the gap was too wide, and the cat didn't move. The light returns. When the power finally surged back to 100%, the obsidian spire woke up as if from a bad dream. The lights blazed, the AI resumed its soothing, robotic voice, and the rescue teams flooded the hallways. They found Leo on the 101st floor, but he wouldn't let them touch him. He was pointing into the elevator shaft, crying hysterically for his friend. A firefighter climbed into the shaft and carefully retrieved the small black body from the control ledge. The story of the Guardian of the Blackout spread through the city like a miracle. In a world obsessed with digital perfection, the image of a singed, stray cat saving a child became a symbol of hope. Midnight was rushed to the Spire's elite veterinary clinic, the same one that usually only treated the robotic pets of the ultra-rich. For the first time, the system error was the most important patient in the city. Midnight survived, though his sleek black fur was now patched with white scar tissue, and he walked with a slight, permanent limp. He didn't return to the basement. He moved into a small apartment on the 10th floor with Leo and his father. He had a bed made of real silk and a view of the city he had saved. But most importantly, he had a hand that scratched behind his ears every single night. The Obsidian Spire changed its rules after that night. They installed manual overrides that a cat could reach and hired biological guardians for the lower levels. They realized that no matter how advanced the AI became, it could never replicate the fierce, sacrificial love of a living heart. The statue in the lobby wasn't of the architect or the CEO, it was a bronze cat with amber glass eyes, looking up at the elevators. As the sun set over the megacity, Midnight sat on Leo's windowsill. He watched the lights of the city flicker on, one by one. He was no longer a shadow, and he was no longer alone. He closed his eyes and purred, the sound echoing through the room. The city was full of machines, but as long as Midnight was there, it would always have a soul. Midnight was a stray who lived in the shadows, but he became the light that led a lost boy home. This story is a reminder that the most powerful thing in the world isn't a computer, it's the bond between us and our animals. If Midnight's bravery touched your heart, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to Paws That Saved Lives for more cinematic stories of animal heroes. In the comments, tell us, what's the bravest thing your pet has ever done? We read every single story,